I just told everyone else to unmute themselves, and then I forgot to unmute myself. You can tell I haven't done this in 6 months. Hello, everyone.
She is back.
It's a morning buzz. I feel very excited to be here with everyone today, and we want to welcome Liz. We're gonna. Oh wait, we should move to the next slide because the presentation's begun. I'm Jen Rubins. I haven't been here in 6 months, and I'm very happy to be back. And we're welcoming a new person to the book buzz, to the
disco ball.
Liz, say hello.
Hi, I feel like I should say celebrate. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
So Liz, where are you joining us from?
I am joining you from Malibu, California, where I recently moved. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. So I've worked for Penguin Random House for 25 years, for those who don't know me, but this is a new position within library marketing. So I'm really happy to see everyone join you.
I know, you're like, I'm not new. Why are you telling me? You know.
I've been in the audience for these exciting buzzes, and now I'm part of it.
And many libraries in California have had the great pleasure of having you buzz to them before, but we're really happy that you're buzzing with us today. And then, of course, welcoming back, Maureen, you get a disco ball too.
Thank you.
Maureen is joining us from
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
It's no Malibu, California, but
it's great.
We do our best.
It's probably sunny there. It's great days.
Is it? Okay, I feel better. It is. It's actually really nice out today.
It is. It looks nice out the window. I haven't been outside. I'm in Brooklyn. But I'm on my way to Malibu in a few minutes. All right, Liz, get ready. So we're so happy to be here. Happy July. Just to remind you, we want to hear all about what you're reading, what you're listening to with hashtag PRH Morning Buzz. So please talk to us throughout the session, or you can use the chat box on the side. Tell us where you're listening from. Thanks for joining us. We're so thrilled to have you. And just really quickly, because Liz missed out, we used to do a pop quiz, guys, and Liz never got to join for that era, the pop quiz hat era. So Liz, I'm taking an imaginary question out of the pop quiz hat. Do you want to tell us what you're reading or listening to so people can get to know you a little bit better?
Always. Okay, so I'm listening to The Comfort Book by Matt Haig, which is, it's his favorite books, it's lists, it's his favorite movies, things that have helped lift him out of his very acute depression, full of just his wit and wisdom. I love it. He narrates it, of course, and it's just, I'm playing it for my kids. I just think it's a book, and an audiobook especially, for everyone. And then I'm reading Now Beacon, Now See, which is coming out in September. And I don't know if anybody else has had the experience of being able to read a book by a person they sort of know. So the author is Christopher Sorrentino. This is a memoir of mainly his mother, who died in 2017, but also his family life in Brooklyn, a changing Brooklyn, but also about family dysfunction. And Christopher is the son of Gil Sorrentino, the writer, the novelist, the Stanford professor who also has passed away, who was my dad's best friend. But I was on this coast, they were on that coast, and so this is an insight into it, and it's beautifully written. He was nominated for a National Book Award. I highly recommend it. Again, Now Beacon, Now See, a memoir.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's really interesting.
Maureen, you'd be so proud. I'm reading a murder mystery. I'm very excited. A Slow Fire Burning by Girl on the Train author Paula Hawkins. So I'm very excited for this at the end of next month.
You have to tell me what you think of it. It's on my list, but I haven't gotten there yet. So let me know.
And do you want to share anything, Maureen, or should we keep moving along?
I mean, I'll be brief. I finally got back to reading after a couple of months, and then it's from last year. I'm finally getting to The Searcher by Tana French. She's one of my favorite authors, and I've read every one of her books, and I can't believe it took me this long to finally read it. But of course, I'm only maybe 4 chapters in, and it's already phenomenal. So but everyone knows that about Tana French, so I don't need to say anything else.
That's great. I'm sure our audience will be very excited that you're finally reading that one and can tell
I know. I'm sure they've already read it. They're
all
like,
the great
Maureen,
things
come
about
on.
All right, so our key is on the board, on the slide, so you already know hopefully all of these things, but I want you to look out for the E in the orange circle just to make sure that you know that you can request an e-galley when you see that symbol. So keep an eye out for that. And I wanted to tell you about very exciting programming happening tomorrow. A kaleidoscope, actually. It's pretty fun. So we have our series that's continuing, our library lunch and learn. This is the 4th episode. If you're not familiar with what we've been up to, you can check out previous episodes on our YouTube page. We've celebrated everything from health and wellness to a virtual science fair to Pride Month. So we always choose a different topic, and tomorrow is on art and photography. And I'm so excited about this one. I come from a family of photographers, and I just think this is such a neat topic that isn't perhaps often something we talk about, some of these amazing art and photography books. So Melissa Lindbergh from the Library of Congress Prints and Photographs Division. So who better to join us for that? We'll be sharing her expertise, and we have some other great authors in the lineup. So to register, please visit the URL on your screen, or we will be sure to send it around after today's episode. So you can be sure to join us tomorrow, or you can always catch us on YouTube.
Okay, so our range of virtual author events is spectacular. Every day, you could spend your whole day just watching author virtual events. You know, that's one silver lining of the pandemic, is that we are able to attend events across the country, across the globe. And here are some of the highlights for this month. Matt Haig, I was talking about his book, The Comfort Book. Of course, The Midnight Library is still on the New York Times bestseller list. I'm sure the holds for that in your libraries are tremendous. CC Sabathia, I'll be talking a little bit more about his book, coming from a new imprint of ours. Jasmine Guillory, her new rom-com set in Hollywood. Morningside Heights was an Indie Next pick. That's set in New York, starting in the 70s. Joshua Henkins getting such rave reviews for his book about the long span of a marriage. It's a really dear and interesting story. The Final Girl Support Group is Grady Hendrix's new book. That is definitely one to tune into. His satire, his, you know, campy horror novels. And then Ace Atkins has his new Quinn Coulson novel. So I'm sure that really is a range of interests. And if you go to prh.com/booksconnectuslive, you can see even more events that fit into your schedule.
And some of you have probably already seen that we've launched our Passport to Summer Reading campaign. So you can pack your bags and your books and take off, whether you're traveling overseas, kicking it poolside, or going on a thrilling adventure. Your reading destination awaits. You can see all of these titles when you visit tinyurl.com/PRH Summer Passport and browse all the destinations. And in addition, you can enter to win our Passport to Summer Reading sweepstakes, where one lucky winner will receive copies of some of the hottest summer reads, including Malibu Rising, Blush, Great Circle, While We Were Dating, Project Hail Mary, The Paper Palace, and Clark and Division, and then some perfect summer reading passport swag. So I hope you enter. You can enter by visiting the 10 URL on the screen, and good luck.
And we have a virtual fall 2021 bookshelf, which is, if you haven't checked it out already, we hope that you do. We have tons of great categories. We obviously are thrilled to share great titles with you every month here, but just to put it all together for you in a way that's much more consumable, you can just browse our bookshelves and check out what we're recommending for this fall. So, you know, there are no Christmas lights on the virtual bookshelf, but, you know, it's easier to see the titles that way. So we hope that you'll check it out, and you can of course request e-galleys and view more title collections by genre, download an Excel grid, and we really hope we can make fall a bit easier for you, as we know it's super busy with lots of huge titles, back to school, lots of craziness, re-entry into the world, hopefully, fingers crossed. And so as the good vibes continue, we hope that we can guide you with some great books.
New imprints alert. So we have 3 brand new imprints at Penguin Random House that are really special, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about each of them. First, we have 4 Color Books, which is a new lifestyle imprint. It's founded by NAACP Image Award and James Beard Award-winning chef Bryant Terry. He's a chef in residence at the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco. He's renowned for his activism and efforts to create a healthy, equitable, and sustainable food system. 4 Colors' mission is to diversify publishing, and it will publish 2 to 4 titles from BIPOC authors a year. Its flagship publication featured there is Black Food, Stories, Art, and Recipes from Across the African Diaspora. It's due in October. It's curated and edited by Terry. From homeland to migration, spirituality to Black future. Each chapter of Black Food illuminates a part of the Black experience, offering delicious recipes, essays, arresting art from such luminaries as the Black Panther Party creative director Emory Douglas and American artist Serena Mental. It's a stunning design by the acclaimed George McCalman. And the imprint's first acquisition is the debut cookbook. This is so exciting, from Top Chef Junior finalist and teen chef sensation, Rihanna Bisseret Martinez. Then we have Tiny Reparations, which we've been talking about, and the excitement has been building for a long time because we know Phoebe Robinson as one of our hilarious comedians, actresses, and authors, and she has founded this new imprint, Tiny Rep, we refer to it. It's Tiny Reparations. This will be a highly curated imprint dedicated to publishing both literary fiction and nonfiction that will highlight and amplify unique and diverse voices. It's committed to publishing complex, honest, and humorous work that not only reflects the current conversation, but also pushes it forward. This is from their mission statement. And Tiny Rep will publish Phoebe's new book in September, Please Don't Sit on My Bed in Your Outside Clothes, of which she says, we've all been through a trying time, which is why I wrote something to make you laugh until you pee a little, feel until you want to rage a little, and think until you go back to laughing a little. And its first fiction acquisition is a debut coming-of-age novel, What the Fireflies Knew, from Detroit native Kai Harris. She now lives in California and teaches creative writing at Santa Clara University. So super excited for that imprint to launch its first book. And then
she really validates my feelings about her title, because I've always been like that my whole life. I was like, no one can sit on my bed if you've been on the subway or other places. And I was like, I'm so glad I'm not crazy that this is a shared,
well, and it takes on new
sentiment.
meaning in the pandemic, when at first we were all crazy about outside clothes. Like I'm, reading that into the title too, right? It's like,
oh yeah, I was always like that.
Treating it like Silkwood and like stripping down. And anyway, moving on to Rocklit 101. So Rocklit 101 will feature exhilarating, innovative work from some of the biggest artists and most imaginative and incisive writers of our time. It goes across a wide variety of interests: music, figures, sports, pop culture, art, activism, to illustrated books and cookbooks, even kids' books. This will defy any genre altogether. Its inaugural title is, as I referred to in the author event slide, Till the End by C.C. Sabathia with Chris Smith. It's a raw and compelling memoir of baseball, family, fame, addiction, and recovery by one of the most beloved baseball players of his generation. And those are that.
And next week, we can get ready for LibraryCon 2021. We'll be hosting a free virtual event celebrating graphic novels, sci-fi, fantasy, and manga. You'll hear from authors and creators such as Joe Hill, Scott Snyder, and E. Lockhart, and get the inside scoop about what's coming next. So you can register for free visiting the tiny URL on our screen, and we hope to see you there.
I forgot my superhero mask for this slide.
Oh no, we have so many fandom titles. You could have worn it through the whole thing.
Oh my God. I trip over Christmas lights trying to get it, so I've got it next time.
So what better follow-up to LibraryCon announcement than all of our fandom reads? And I'll start with Stone Sword Table. This is for lovers of myths and legends and all the magic, adventure, and romance they represent. Everyone will love Stone Sword Table. It's edited by Swapna Krishna and Jen Northington. It features stories by a best-selling cross-genre assortment of some of the most exciting writers working today. This is an anthology of gender-bent, queered, race-bent, and inclusive retellings from the vast lore surrounding King Arthur, Camelot, and the Knights of the Round Table. It's brave, it's bold, it's groundbreaking that the stories in Stone Sword Table will bring fresh life to beloved myths and give longtime fans a chance to finally see themselves in their favorite legends. So very cool anthology here. I think a lot of people will be drawn to that. And Malika, Warrior Queen Volume 1 by Roy Okupe and illustrated by Chima Kalu is part of the unique universe, extraordinary fantasy and superhero stories inspired by African history, culture, and mythology. Following the exploits of Queen and military commander Malika, who struggles to keep the peace in her ever-expanding empire, Azaz, this historical fantasy is set in 15th century West Africa and created by an all-star team from Nigeria. Growing up as a prodigy, Malika inherits the crown from her father in an incredibly unusual way, splitting the kingdom of Aziz in half. After years of civil war, Malika finally unites all of Azaz, expanding it into one of the largest empires in all of West Africa. But expansion doesn't come without its costs. Enemies begin to rise within her council, and Azaz catches the attention of one of the most feared superpowers that the world has ever known, the Ming Dynasty. As Malika fights to win the clandestine war within the walls of her empire, she must also turn her attention to an indomitable and treacherous foe with plans to vanquish her entire people. This volume also features bonus stories like Malika Dragon Trials and Windmaker Birth of a King, and a new fun behind the scenes section. So there's a lot to dig into here for your fandom readers. And from New York Times bestselling author E. Lockhart, who will also be at Virtual LibraryCon, and artist Manuel Pretano, comes a new Gotham City superhero in an exciting YA graphic novel called Whistle. 16-year-old Willow Zimmerman has something to say. When she's not on the streets protesting City Hall's neglect of her rundown Gotham neighborhood, she's working nights at a local dog shelter. But despite how much she does for the world around her, she's struggling to take care of her sick mother at home. Without health insurance and with money running out, a desperate Willow reconnects with an estranged family friend, E. Nigma, party promoter and real estate tycoon. Nigma opens the door to an easier life, offering Willow a new job hosting his glamorous private poker nights with Gotham City's elites. Now Willow's able to afford medical treatments for her mom and get a taste of the high life that she's never had. But then everything changes. When Willow and the local stray Great Dane, Leibowitz, are attacked by one of Gotham's most horrific villains, the monstrous Killer Croc, and they awake after the fight, they can understand each other. So now Willow has powers that she's never dreamed of. And when she discovers that Nigma and his poker buddies are actually some of Gotham's most corrupt criminals, she has to make a choice: remain loyal to the man who saved her mom's life, or use her new powers to save her community. E. Lockhart brings her sharp character work and tension to the world of Gotham, this debut that everyone's going to eat up. And I think we've all been eagerly awaiting the next book from Naomi Novik. And finally, it's here. In The Last Graduate, a budding dark sorceress determined not to use her formidable powers uncovers more secrets about the workings of her world. This is the stunning sequel to A Deadly Education. At the Scholomance, Elle O'Ryan and the other students are faced with their final year and the looming specter of graduation, a deadly ritual that barely half the students survive. Could you imagine? Elle is determined that her group will make it out alive, but their prospects are dimming by the day as the savagery of the school ramps up, until Elle realizes that sometimes winning the game means throwing out all the rules. This series is like Harry Potter for adults. It taps into that nostalgia, but features a darkly powerful woman at the center of a really feminist story, delivering a sophisticated portrayal of very real issues. It's perfect for readers of books with witches, wizards, and dark magic like The Night Circus, The Starless Sea, the Magician series, and A Discovery of Witches. And I'm sure your patrons are already on the lookout for this one. And All of the Marvels by Douglas Walk is the first ever full reckoning with Marvel Comics interconnected 500,000-page story. It's a revelatory guide to the epic of epics and to the past 60 years of American culture, from a beloved authority on the subject who read all 27,000 plus Marvel superhero comics and lived to tell the tale. This is insane. I was reading about this book and I said, "Oh, you know what, this is a dedicated author, and clearly this is going to be like the deepest dive you can have into Marvel Universe." They say that this work is very significant and maybe even a landmark, but it's also ludicrously fun. Welk sees fascinating patterns, the rise and fall of particular cultural aspirations, and of the storytelling modes that conveyed them. He observes the Marvel story's progressive visions and its painful stereotypes, its patches of woeful hackwork and stretches of luminous creativity, and the way that it all feeds into a potent cosmology that echoes our deepest hopes and fears. So this is a huge treat for Marvel fans, or really, honestly, comic book fans, I think, anywhere, because they all kind of represent a similar theme. But it's a revelation for readers who don't know Doctor Strange from Doctor Doom. Marvels. So very cool book. And last, Scandalous Gossip, Wild Parties, and Forbidden Love. The Greek tale of Hades and Persephone gets a romantic modern update in the gorgeously illustrated Eisner-nominated Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe, including a brand new exclusive short story. This is an ingenious take on the Greek pantheon, and it's the modern update on the stories of Hades and Persephone that follows the propulsive love story of two Greek gods told with lavish artwork and contemporary sensibilities. It's for fans of romantic retellings such as Malice, Uprooted, and The Bear and the Nightingale, and of course for fans in eager anticipation of the Lore Olympus Netflix series.
And just to add in a few audio tidbits, I don't have stuff for everything, but Swordstone Table will be read by Vikas Adam, who anyone who's a listener might be familiar with him. He reads across the board, kids, things, adults, and he's fantastic. And then The Last Graduate, I'm very excited to tell you that Anisha Dadia is returning. She read A Deadly Education, which was a Booklist Editor's Choice 2020 adult audiobook. And I just have to tell you what they said about her. They said she was pitch perfect and that Dadia's narration superbly pairs to Novik's dark fantasy. So we can expect more of the same, and fans of that first audiobook will certainly want this one, especially because it was a cliffhanger ending. So everyone was left craving more, no matter how you took in the story.
Okay, here are some fantastic memoirs. These are the picks of the list. First, we have The Speckled Beauty, A Dog and His People by the ever popular, endearing author Rick Bragg. It's a short book from, he's won the Pulitzer Prize for All Over But the Shouting, and the best, or I should say Shoutin', the best cook in the world. This captures the extraordinary devotion between two damaged creatures who need each other to heal. So Speck is not a good boy. He's a half-blind stray dog, defiant, self-destructive. He's an Australian shepherd who spends his days pestering the FedEx man, picking fights with 1,000-pound livestock, and rolling in donkey manure. He's smelly, and his nights howling at the moon.
Maureen is melting.
That sounds like my dog.
Don't you love him? You love him already. He has
I
been that
do.
way since the moment he appeared on the ridge line behind Rick Bragg's house, starved and half dead. He arrived just at the right time, as Rick Bragg had been diagnosed with cancer. He was enduring chemo, kidney failure, and recurring pneumonia. He was really sick. He was really lethargic and depressed, and Speck helped lift Rick out of this. It's a really tender story with Bragg's trademark sorrow, humor, and grit. Writing about his Australian Shepherd is really an irresistible pairing of sensibility and subject, obviously appealing to dog fans, dog lovers everywhere. And it's also his return to the foothills of Alabama, which is the land he loves. It's sure to delight fans. Then we have Where the Light Fell by Philip Yancey. This is a revered Christian author. This reveals his origin story. It's a searing family memoir, offers a rare insider view into Southern fundamentalism in the tradition of educated and hillbilly elegy. So Philip was raised by an impoverished widow who earned room and board as a Bible teacher in the 1950s in Atlanta. Philip and his brother Marshall found ways to venture out beyond the confines of their 8-foot wide trailer. But when Yancey was in college, he uncovered a shocking secret about his father's death, and it began to explain why his mother's extreme fundamentalism came to dominate their lives. She believed her sons had been ordained for a divine cause. Searching for answers, Yancey dives into his family origins, and he takes us on a journey through the backwoods of the Bible Belt to the bustling streets of Philadelphia. From trailer parks to church sanctuaries, we meet family oddballs, fire and brimstone preachers, and are privy to childhood awakenings through nature, music, and literature, which is really the hook for me. In time, the weight of religious and family pressure sent both sons on opposite journeys, one toward healing from the impact of what he calls a toxic faith, the other into a self-destructive spiral. So this has been praised, and Philip Yancey, who's written 25 books, been translated into over 50 languages. He was a journalist in Chicago. He has quite the resume, but he is praised by Bono, Anne Lamott, Jimmy Carter, and this is a fascinating portrait of fundamentalism and the conflicts within this family. And then we have Sorry Not Sorry, something quite different. Sorry Not Sorry is from actress and humanitarian Alyssa Milano. It's her sharp, deeply intimate ode to the life she's lived. It gives her fans what they've been wanting to hear about, which are stories from her own life, growing up as a celebrity, of the families, her family and her friends, connections, and breaking apart. But she really is a strong activist and humanitarian, and she'll be talking a lot about that in this book. She's already a best-selling children's book author, and FYI, if you're a fan of the 90s show Who's the Boss, there's going to be a reboot billed as a sequel to the original, and it will take place 30 years after the original, with Alyssa Milano and Tony Danza.
I didn't know that. Oh my God.
I didn't know that either.
Oh my gosh. And what could be more different than 1,000 years of joys and sorrows? This is a widely anticipated memoir from Ai Weiwei, one of the world's most famous artists and activists. He had an installation you might have seen at Alcatraz. He's about to have a big exhibit near me at the Skirball Cultural Center. He's such an amazing artist. I know that's an overused word, but phenomenal artist, activist, and this tells the century-long epic tale of China through the story of his own experience, life, and the legacy of his father, Ai Ching, the nation's most celebrated poet. And I hear we will be having a collection of his father's poetry coming down the pike. So his father was once an intimate of Mao Zedong. His father was branded a rightist during the Cultural Revolution, and his family were banished to a desolate place known as Little Siberia. That's where Ai Ching was sentenced to hard labor cleaning public toilets. Ai Weiwei recounts this childhood in exile and then his difficult decision to leave his family to study art in America, where he befriended Allen Ginsberg and was inspired by Andy Warhol. So this has candor and wit, but really this overarching family story and cultural story and history of China. It charts his rise from artistic unknown to art world superstar and international human rights activist, and how his work really has been shaped by living under a totalitarian regime. His sculptures, as I mentioned, and installations have been viewed by millions around the globe. His architectural achievements include the iconic bird's nest that was at Olympic Stadium in Beijing. And he now lives in Cambridge, UK. This will include 8 pages of photographs, a 4-color insert, and the cover, which is so incredible, is designed by Weiwei himself.
And it is so eye-catching.
It is. I know. It would be a beautiful poster. So I'm sure that art is on display, I would assume, somewhere in one of his exhibits. And boy, have we been talking about this now ever since Will announced. I mean, it's been in People magazine, the press release went everywhere, and he's already had sort of, pre-pub launch parties for his memoir, Will by Will Smith. And of course, Will has the double entendre of very much being about one's willpower. And he is a powerhouse entertainer, was a rap artist, then an actor, and just can do anything. This is a hybrid of memoir and self-help, sort of like Green Lights, but of course entirely different. It charts his transformation from a fearful child in a tense West Philadelphia home to being one of the biggest rap stars of his era, then the biggest movie star in Hollywood. And this is only half the story. This is not just about his rise to fame. Will thought, with good reason, that he had won at life. He was a super successful, his whole family, as you know, his children, his wife, all successful. But this was somewhat of a problem. His family didn't see it that way. They felt more like star performers in his circus, a 7-day-a-week job they hadn't signed up for. So this memoir is really the product of the journey of self-knowledge, of a reckoning with all of that. And then next up, I mean, he's always in the limelight, but next up, he'll be producing and starring as Richard Williams, the infamous father of American icons Venus and Serena Williams, in a Warner Brothers movie, not to be confused with Shakespeare, King Richard. This will release on November 19th. And then this summer, he also begins production on Apple's upcoming scripted action thriller, Emancipation. So he's always in the news. And then I've been talking with the marketing director at Penguin Press that's publishing Will, and he also would like to start a book club for youth. And so you'll be hearing more about his book club, which very much will have some outreach in libraries, and more to come on that. And then something I did not know about Thich Nhat Hanh and Martin Luther King Jr., that they had a friendship and communicated and inspired one another. This is the never before told story, brothers in the beloved community, of their friendship. The day after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in 1968, Thich Nhat Hanh, we publish his books. He's the beloved Vietnamese Buddhist teacher, and he writes beautifully too, and peace activist. So Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a heartbroken letter to their mutual friend, Martin Luther King Jr., and Thich Nhat Hanh's mutual friend, Raphael Gold. He wrote, "They killed him. They killed my hope. I do not know what to say. He made so great an impression in me. This morning I have the impression that I cannot bear the loss." The two men had met in 1966, and in 1967, they became not only allies in the peace movement, but friends. So this charts that friendship. In fact, Martin Luther King Jr. nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1967, and he wrote of him that Thich Nhat Hanh is a holy man, for he is humble and devout. He is a scholar of immense intellectual capacity. His ideas for peace, if applied, would build a monument to ecumenism, to world brotherhood, to humanity. And then the author, the Right Reverend Mark Hanley Andrus, is the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of California, and his leadership has focused on key issues related to peace and justice. He's the absolutely right person to write this book. He fights for civil rights for LGBTQ plus persons, healthcare, against climate change, and his climate advocacy has taken him to the UN climate conferences in Paris, to the Dakota Access Pipeline demonstrations at Standing Rock. He's really a remarkable person. And then next we'll have...
Wait, just go back 1 second.
Yeah.
I'll add some audio tidbits for the previous
please.
slide. So I thought when you said this is the pick of the list, you were going to say it was the pick of the litter.
Oh, that too.
The Speckled Beauty, I can't share, will be read by the author. And not only is Rick Bragg an award-winning author, but he's also an acclaimed narrator. He's won 4 Audiophile Earphones Awards. He's known, he has a really distinctive drawl, that, Alabama accent. And in just one rave review, I love this description. They said in the review of Where I Come From, Audiophile said he narrates these southern slices of life in a tone that reminds one of smooth sour mash whiskey. So if that doesn't get you in the mood to listen to him, I don't know, Maureen, sign you.
That's pretty cool.
Cheers. So I think it's a real experience for fans of his to really hear his voice, and I'm so glad that he'll be returning to read this one. And then I can share that Will Smith will be reading Will, as if anyone else could do the job. I mean, that's often said about a lot of memoirs, but he's such an icon, and I'm really excited that he will be reading his own memoir and self-help combo book. I'm really excited about this one. I grew up watching him, as everyone has, I guess, and this will be really great to hear his voice, lead you along on his journey. So, and more to come on the other audiobooks. And someone did ask in the comments, I just have to add that, why we don't have audio editions on Edelweiss, because audiobooks aren't ready until much closer to Unpub, but we do have the volumes app. So look for more info on that if you're not familiar in the wrap up, because we can share how you as librarians can get special access to listen to some of the books each month that are coming out. So you can get it a little bit early, but not as early, of course, as a galley, unfortunately.
And something a little different. I swear I have a Santa hat with the microphone and my hair. No one needs to see that, but it's here. I'm celebrating.
You're not gonna put it on? Oh my gosh.
I'm celebrating. I know. How disappointing. No, it's fine. I'll make up for it with these amazing books.
You held it up.
The point, yes, exactly. I got it out of my closet and I brought it here for the event.
Thank you.
Someone's saying, put it on.
Put it on. Put it on. Yay. Merry Christmas.
All right. It's on. It's on. You win. I did this to myself. So this is something very different, much lighter, and just a reminder that you can spread holiday cheer all year. And I'll start with In Christmas at the Amish Bake Shop, where best-selling authors Shelley Shepard Gray, Rachel L. Good, and Lori Lowe celebrate the spirit of the season, the warmth of simple traditions, and of course, the joy of holiday treats with this faith-affirming collection of 3 connected holiday novellas about the Christmas surprises in store for those who work and shop at a charming Amish bakery. In A Christmas Cake for Rebecca, Aidan returns to Lancaster after 20 years away, and bake shop owner Rebecca is dismayed to find he's still as handsome and kind as ever. He broke her heart when he left the community back then, but will a holiday emergency provide a second chance at love, this time forever? And in Best Christmas Present Ever, a lonely widower with a sick daughter and a new cake decorator meet at the bake shop and discover that they were once childhood playmates. But as each of them helps the other care for the family, their neighborly kindness inspires a gift that only love could make possible. And in the third novella, in The Christmas Cupcake, a builder who never learned to read believes he must hide his fond feelings for a kind school teacher. But after they run into each other at the bake shop, she offers to teach him, and as Christmas approaches, each of them learns a lesson about the great gift of love. So this book is sure to get your patrons in the holiday spirit, and it also includes delicious recipes for holiday treats from the author's own recipe collection. So cool, it's got the books you can read, the novellas, and then they can also get to baking. So a very cool package for everybody. And Christmas by the Book by Anne Marie Ryan is for fans of feel-good holiday reads and books like The Authenticity Project, The Little Paris Bookshop, and The Bookshop on the Corner. Any books that take place in a bookstore, basically. Nora and her husband Simon have run the beautiful oak-beamed bookshop in their small British village for 30 years. But times are tough and the shop is under the threat of closure. This Christmas season will really decide their fate. When an elderly man visits the store and buys the one book they've never been able to sell, saying it's the perfect gift for his sick grandson, it gives Nora an idea. She and Simon will send out books to those feeling down this Christmas. Maybe they can't save their bookstore, but at least they'll have one final chance to lift people's spirits through the power of reading. After gathering nominations online, Nora and Simon quietly deliver books to 6 residents of the village in need of some festive cheer. As the town prepares for a white Christmas, the books begin to give the recipients hope, one by one. But with the future of the bookshop still up in the air, Nora and Simon will need a Christmas miracle, or perhaps a little help from the people whose lives they've touched to find a happy ending of their own. And The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox is another feel-good holiday-themed romantic comedy about identical twins who switch lives in the days leading up to Christmas. When Chef Charlie Goodwin gets hit on the head on the LA set of her reality baking show, she loses a lot more than consciousness. She also loses, yeah, Merry Christmas. She also loses her ability to taste and smell, which are both critical as her as a judge on a baking show. So meanwhile, her sister, an identical twin, Cass, is frantically trying to hold her own life together back in their quaint mountain hometown while running the family's bustling bakery and dealing with her ex, who won't get the memo that they're over. So with only days until Christmas, Charlie asks Cass to do something that they haven't done since they were kids: switch places. But temporarily trading lives proves more complicated than they imagined, especially when rugged firefighter Jake Greenman and gorgeous physician assistant Miguel Rodriguez are thrown into the mix. Will the twins' identity swap be a recipe for disaster, or does it have all the right ingredients for getting their lives back on track? This is like your quintessential like Hallmark / Family Channel Lifetime.
Someone make this a movie for me, please.
Who doesn't love a twin swap?
I mean, The Parent Trap. I'm like already
classic.
I'm into it. I'm excited.
It's The Parent Trap with Christmas and
Friday.
And this next one is for readers of rom-coms, diverse contemporary romances, and fans of Talia Hibbert, Denise Williams, and Jasmine Guillory. This is A Holly Jolly Diwali by Sonia Lally. One type A data analyst discovers her free-spirited side on an impulsive journey from bustling Mumbai to the gorgeous beaches of Goa and finds love waiting for her on Christmas morning. 28-year-old Nikki Randwaha has always made practical decisions. Despite her love for music and art, she became an analyst for stability. She's always stuck close to home in case her family needed her, and she's always dated guys that seem good on paper. When she's laid off, Nikki realizes that practical hasn't exactly paid off for her. So for the first time ever, she throws caution to the wind and books a last-minute flight to her friend Daya's wedding. She arrives in India just in time to celebrate Diwali, the Festival of Lights, where she meets Samir, a London musician. Maybe it's the splendor of Mumbai or the magic of the holiday season, but Nikki is immediately drawn to Sam. And at the wedding, the champagne flows and their flirtatious banter makes it clear that the attraction is mutual. When Nikki and Sam join Daya, her husband, and their friends on a group honeymoon, their connection grows deeper, and free-spirited Sam helps Nikki get in touch with her passionate and creative side and with her Indian roots. When she gets a new job offer back home, she must decide what she wants out of the next chapter of her life: to cling to the straight and narrow like always, or take a leap of faith and live the kind of bold life that she would never have dreamed of. In this book, Lally once again imagines modern relationships and an identity crisis in her distinctive, insightful, and humorous voice.
I'm so in the holiday spirit now. And someone said she has the best titles. It's so true. But
I love a Holly Jolly Diwali.
I
By
know.
Sonia Lally.
It sounds great. I'm excited.
And Always in December by Emily Stone. It started with a letter and it ended with a love story. Every December, Josie posts a letter from her home in London to the parents she lost on Christmas night many years ago. Each year, she writes the same 3 words, missing you always. But this year, her annual trip to the post box is knocked off course by a bicycle collision with a handsome stranger, a stranger who will change the course of Josie's life. Josie always thought she was the only one who avoided the Christmas season, but this year, Max has his own reasons for doing the same, and coincidence leads them to spending the holiday together. Aglow with new love, Josie thinks this might be the start of something special, except Max disappears without saying goodbye. And over the course of the next year, Max and Josie will find that fate continues to bring them together in places that they'd never expect. New York City, Edinburgh, the quiet English countryside, and it turns out that Max had every reason to leave and every reason to stay. But what does fate hold for Josie and Max as Christmas approaches again? We'll find out if you read the book. A
Maureen,
devastating
someone said you should wear the Santa hat every day. So are we
all
gonna
day, every day.
every day,
Sure,
every
it's
meeting?
on. It's not coming off now.
You're never taking it off.
I'll wear it while I'm walking around town tonight and see who doesn't talk to me anymore.
Okay, we'll post it on Instagram.
And I guess that I have to wear it now.
It's a good
And then-
segue for the next one.
I know. Well, yes, actually it is. So, of course, the list wouldn't be complete without Dear Santa by the Queen of Christmas Stories herself, Debbie Macomber. A special holiday wish list brings about hope, love, and second chances in this nostalgic novel. Lindy Carmichael isn't feeling particularly joyful when she returns home to Washington for Christmas. The man she thought was the one has cheated on her with her best friend. She feels completely devoid of creativity in her graphic design job. Not even carolers or Christmas cookies can cheer her up. But it's her mom, Ellen, who remembers an old tradition that might lift her daughter's spirits. Reading through a box of childhood letters to Santa and reminiscing about what she'd wished for as a young girl may just be the inspiration that she needs. With Ellen's encouragement, she decides to write a new letter to Santa, one that will encourage her to have faith and believe just as she'd done all those years ago. Little does Lindy know that this exercise in gratitude will cause her wishes to unfold before her in miraculous ways. And thanks to some fateful twists of Christmas magic, especially an unexpected connection with a handsome former classmate, Lindy ultimately realizes that there is truly no place like home for the holidays. In Dear Santa, Macomber celebrates the joys of Christmas blessings, old and new, in her typical Macomber fashion.
Well, I'm in the holiday spirit. Obviously, this category got me excited this morning, and I was like an elf getting ready for the book
It's
club.
nice. It's a welcome change of pace for July.
It is, and also I was glad there was a category that gave me a clear direction here for today's prop. I mean, memoir is pretty tough, so I'm glad there was a real clear winner of how I could decorate. But Christmas came too early in this case for the audiobook news, I have to say. So no info yet on who's reading some of these audiobooks. However, I just have to tell you, and I know you already know this, but it's just so important, I think, making the audiobook editions of these available, especially around the holiday times. It just pairs so well with holiday decorating, baking, cleaning. There's so much that you, I think, could find comfort in with a gentle holiday listen or some of these romantic ones. And Debbie Macomber is such a huge audiobook fan herself that she would wholeheartedly agree, because she always talks about how much she loves to listen. So more to come on who will be reading these wonderful books.
Okay, getting back to serious nonfiction.
Take off the hat. I'm just kidding.
I can't.
I don't know what hat to wear. Maybe like, anyway. So Castaway Mountain, Love and Loss Among the Waste Pickers of Mumbai is really a harrowing portrait. It comes from Astra House, whose mission is an imprint of ours, whose mission is to publish writers who can introduce readers to new perspectives about the lives of others. And this book certainly does that. It's for fans of Behind the Beautiful Forevers. It addresses the impact of overconsumption and waste. And it's a true story, a modern parable with shades of magical realism that takes readers to Mumbai, India, and the DNR garbage mountains, which have been written about in the New Yorker, but not like this. These mountains are covered in smog from trash fires, as wealth brought Bollywood knockoffs, fast food, and plastics to Mumbaikers. That's the name of this, the residents of this small, forgotten community of migrants and rag pickers who came to live at the mountain's edge. They make a living by reusing, recycling, and reselling. And among them, and our main character in this book is Farzana. She's an adventurous girl who becomes one of the best pickers. And eventually her family starts to worry about her obsessive relationship to the garbage. Because like so many in her community, she becomes sick, but she cannot give up the thrill of discovery and the hope that among the refuse, there's a chance that she will find something valuable, a treasure to lift her family's fortunes. As she enters adulthood, her way of life becomes even more precarious as officials consider closing the dumping grounds. And our author here lives in Mumbai and is a journalist and is very in tune with government policy there. So that adds another layer to this story that's important and educational. So the closure of these dumping grounds would leave the waste pickers even more vulnerable than ever. The book, Castaway Mountain, reveals that when you own nothing, you know where true value lies in family, community, and love. And as I said, the author, Samya Roy, she's an activist, an entrepreneur, a journalist based in Mumbai. She co-founded Vandana Foundation, which is a nonprofit that provides microloans to entrepreneurs in Mumbai and rural Maharashtra. She's written for Forbes, India, Wall Street Journal, among others. And in 2019, she appeared on the Solvable podcast, which sounds like a fascinating podcast series, which features those who are working to solve the world's most intractable problems. One of the reviews said from Geeta Anand, who's the author of The Cure, said, "It is a rare book. It is rare that a book is a deeply moving love story with unforgettable characters while also illuminating a country and a culture." And then we have Anita Hill, her manifesto, Believing, our 30-year journey to end gender violence. This will publish on the 30th anniversary of Clarence Thomas's confirmation hearings. The original participants, Judge Thomas, Senator Chuck Grassley, and President Biden, are still in positions of power in government. The issues of gender violence in Believing, Anita Hill chronicles 3 decades of America's reckoning with gender violence, touching on sex, race, age, and power. These are as urgent today as they were when she first testified. We now know that gender-based violence is cultural and endemic. It can be physical, emotional, and verbal. Women of color experience sexual harassment at higher rates than white women. Transgender and non-binary people are particularly vulnerable. And Anita Hill draws on her years as a teacher, a legal scholar, and advocate, and on the experience of thousands who have told her their personal stories. She traces the behavior that follows individuals from place to place, from home to school to work and back home. In clear and blunt terms, she's showing the impact that gender violence has on every aspect of our lives and demands that our laws and our leaders must address the issue immediately. This book includes many new reflections on her original testimony in 1991, her conversations with Dr. Christine Blasey Ford on Joe Biden's carefully timed and worded apology. Anita Hill is now a university professor of social policy, law, and women's and gender studies at Brandeis University. She's a frontline activist. Her speaking engagements are intense. She works with the National Women's Law Center and with law firms that represent plaintiffs in landmark cases. Since the Me Too movement, her visibility as an activist has only increased, and Believing will speak to people across generations. Then we have Invisible Child, Poverty, Survival, and Hope in an American City. This is a book by the Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times investigative journalist Andrea Elliott. It began as a record-breaking 5-part New York Times series in 2013, but has certainly expanded since then. It tells the story of 8 dramatic years in the life of Dasani Coates, who's a child with a fantastic imagination living in a Brooklyn homeless shelter. She was born at the turn of a new century. She's named for the bottled water that symbolizes Brooklyn's gentrification. As she grows up, moving with her close-knit family from shelter to shelter, we go back in time to trace Dasani's ancestors from slavery to the Great Migration North. Dasani leads her 7 siblings through hunger, their parents' drug addiction, violence, housing instability, segregated schools, and the constant monitoring of the child protection system. At 13, Dasani enrolls at a boarding school in Pennsylvania, where her loyalties are tested like never before as she learns to code switch between the culture she left behind and the norms of her new town. Feeling like a stranger in both places, she faces an impossible question: what if leaving poverty means abandoning the family you love? So as I said, this is based on nearly a decade of reporting about critical issues in contemporary America, which are highlighted through the life of this one remarkable girl and her struggle to break the cycle of poverty. The reviews have been glowing, calling this Dickensian, an American classic, a triumph, and a book that will haunt your heart. Then we have Those We Throw Away Are Diamonds, a refugee's search for home. This is Dogon Mondiant's story, beyond harrowing. He was born in the midst of the genocide of the Tutsis. Unimaginable violence and poverty followed his family into the UN refugee camps, and he was jailed and then had to become a child soldier in Congo before he turned 12 years old. Yet his incredible will and spirit never disappear in this incredible story of survival. For most refugees, the camps start as an oasis, but they soon become like quicksand, impossible to leave. Dogon managed to be one of the few refugees to go to college. At first, he hid his status from his fellow students out of shame. Eventually, he would emerge as an advocate for his people. Reviews have called this memoir incandescent and a book that should be read worldwide to counter the rhetoric of refugees as nothing but helpless, unable to do anything for their lives. It's really an intimate lens on a global crisis, and rarely do refugees get to tell their own stories. But through his writing, Mondiant took control of his own story, spoke up for forever refugees everywhere, and he once wrote in a poem, "Those we throw away are diamonds," hence the title of the book. Since 1996, he's lived in refugee camps and, as I said, is the global advocate for his cause. He has long-standing partnerships with numerous nonprofits that work with refugee communities. So he's writing this with the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Nadia Murad's memoir, the talented New Yorker writer Jenna Krajewski helped Mondiant write his book, and Nadia Murad's memoir was called The Last Girl. And then we have H.W. Brands, one of our most critically acclaimed, accessible academic historians. He's the rare academic who's also a page-turning storyteller. His biographies of Ben Franklin and FDR have been finalists for the Pulitzer Prize. And this time he gives us a dramatic narrative of the American Revolution, showing it to be more than a fight against the British and more relevant to our own society, because it was also a violent battle among neighbors forced to choose sides, loyalist or patriot. George Washington and Benjamin Franklin were the unlikeliest of rebels. Washington in the 1770s stood at the apex of Virginia society. Franklin was more successful still. John Adams might have seemed more obvious candidate for rebellion, being a cantankerous temperament. Even so, he revered the law, yet all three men became rebels against the British Empire that fostered their success. And this book reminds us that before America could win its revolution against Britain, the Patriots had to win a bitter civil war against family, neighbors, and friends. The author holds the Jack S. Blanton Senior Chair in History at the University of Texas at Austin. And Nathaniel Philbrick says of this book, it speaks compellingly to our current age of division and discord, a bravura performance by one of our great historical storytellers. And finally, the 1619 Project, A New Origin Story. I imagine with all of the press and the fact that this began as a New York Times Magazine story, that you've heard about this project, but I'll tell you a little bit more about it in the book. So the award-winning 1619 Project reframed our understanding of American history by placing slavery and its continuing legacy at the center of our national narrative. This offers also a stirring rebuttal to critics of the project when it first appeared in the New York Times, and makes the case for reparations. The animating idea of the 1619 Project is that our national narrative is more accurately told if we begin not on July 4th, 1776, but in late August of 1619, when a ship arrived in Jamestown bearing a cargo of 20 to 30 enslaved people from Africa. Their arrival inaugurated a barbaric and unprecedented system of chattel slavery that would last for the next 250 years. So this tells this new origin story. It's orchestrated by the editors of the New York Times Magazine, but it's led by MacArthur genius and Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones, who's been doing many virtual events around this project. It's a collection of essays, historical vignettes. It even includes poems from outstanding journalists are in here, thinkers, scholars of American history, including Matthew Desmond, Wesley Morris, Brian Stevenson. It ultimately sends a very strong message that we must have a clear vision of this history if we are to understand our present dilemmas. And there are lots of media tie-ins to it. We have a simultaneous children's edition picture book coming from our Coquila imprint. That will be released the same day as the 1619 Project. And then a multimedia project. This was also a podcast. On the day it became available, it immediately became the #1 podcast in America. And Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Productions is developing a 1619 TV project. So this is just an amazing project and will continue to be discussed, and the profile will be incredible, and the publicity and events around it will be something you'll not want to miss.
Those are all phenomenal. And I'll move quickly just onto audio since I know we're at our hour. Thanks to everyone for staying with us, hopefully. So we can move to the next slide, and I'll just touch on a few audiobook picks that are related to some of the great categories we just talked about. So for Finds for All Fandoms, how could I not mention we have our third Star Wars audiobook original that goes on sale August 31st. So stay tuned for casting news. I know all of you Star Wars listeners will be very excited to hear who will be voicing Tempest Runner by Cavan Scott. He, of course, was the author of our first audiobook original for Star Wars, Dooku, Jedi Lost, which was an Audie's finalist in 2020 for multi-voiced audio. It was raved about by Audiophile. They said every scene is enhanced by subtle scoring and sound effects, giving the experience a movie-like quality. So you can expect no less from this one. The cover was just revealed on June 29th on StarWars.com, and this listen delves into the cutthroat world of one of the High Republic's greatest foes, the merciless Lorna Dee. So Tempest Runner finds Dee a captive of the Jedi, yet determined to have her revenge. So we can't wait to reveal the cast. And of course, you've got to listen. If you've never listened to a Star Wars audiobook, and I say this fully as not like a Star Wars person, but they're incredible. We have the real sound effects, the voices that these actors can do to portray these characters that everyone loves are incredible. It's so cool. So don't miss it. And it's an audio original. So this is the only way you can hear this story. We've changed a memoir to biography in this case because we wanted to share this really special audiobook called Yours for Probably Always by Janet Somerville. This book came out in print form back in 2019. We've just released an audio edition read by Ellen Barkin, the Emmy and Tony Award winning actress. I mean, it's just an incredible listen. You might have been captivated recently by Ken Burns' PBS series Hemingway. And so you might want to learn more now about the brilliant journalist, Martha Gellhorn, who was Hemingway's third wife. And it's interesting, a lot of people say, that it's unfortunate in a way that, she had a short tenure as Mrs. Hemingway. It was 5 years of her life, but it sort of sometimes eclipsed her own writing because everyone refers to her as, one of Hemingway's wives. But she was an incredible talent. And this audiobook is a curated collection of letters between Gellhorn and the extraordinary personalities that were her correspondents in a very interesting time of her life. So through this audiobook, you get to hear Ellen Barkin take on all of these famous personas and read these letters, really bring them to life. And then you have Janet Somerville's input, and she sort of puts everything in context, and it's really fascinating. Audiophile, I love this description. They said that Barkin narrates this collection of Gellhorn's letters with the precision of an expert archivist. Her contralto voice creates a bygone vocal persona that echoes the 30s and 40s, which is the years that are featured in this audiobook. So it really is a journey to the past in a really fascinating way, and a great way to continue your fascination, especially if you were a fan, like I said recently, of that documentary about Hemingway. And then moving on to holiday cheer. I'm so thrilled. I have such memories as a child of seeing the Nutcracker, and I think it's for a lot of kids a rite of passage of their first introduction perhaps to ballet. And this is an incredible way to introduce kids to the Nutcracker, and so important. This is the true story of a girl who made ballet history. So it's a reimagined and modern take on the holiday favorite, because this audiobook weaves together the Christmas tale of the Nutcracker with the true story of 12-year-old ballerina Charlotte Nebrez, who was the first Black girl to play Marie in the New York City Ballet's production. So I recently watched video interviews with her. I mean, this took place a few years ago when she made her debut as Marie in the Nutcracker, but it was just so beautiful to see her interviewed and for her to speak about what that meant both to her as a dancer and then what she knows it will mean to so many children who got the experience of seeing her play the lead in this beautiful ballet. So we're so thrilled that she's sharing her story in this beautiful picture book that we are going to bring to audio. And then finally, Meat Eater's Campfire Stories, Close Calls. This is another audio original. I joke that I'm not an outdoorsy person. This is my idea of a close call with nature. This is the extent of what I want to experience. New York City. But anyway, this though, I mean, he is obviously a groundbreaking author and narrator of his tales about hunting and wilderness and survival. And so you can really gather around the campfire with the Meat Eater crew. And this shares 16 harrowing true tales of survival, grit, and misfortune in the great outdoors. It's a really immersive audio experience. It's from the host of the long-running Netflix series, and he's a top-ranked wilderness podcast host. So who better to really speak to listeners? And then also there's a full cast of the contributors who share their own stories. So it's really something to hear them tell it themselves. And, from run-ins with black bears and grizzlies to hypothermia, things that I hope to never experience myself, in listening to and thinking, I'm glad it didn't happen to me, but I want to hear you tell the tale. So Meat Eater's Campfire Stories with Stephen Ranella is a really cool audio experience. And then finally, I just had to leave you. If you're not aware of the Sync program, it's really free audiobooks for teens, no catch. Tell your patrons of all ages, really, to sign up for Sync. And we are thrilled as Listening Library to be hosting, starting tomorrow, July 8th through July 14th, 2 of our titles, The Henna Wars and Saints and Misfits, will be available for free to listeners who sign up. So you can head over to audiobooksync.com and don't miss this great pairing from Listening Library. We're thrilled to be sponsors of this fantastic program that's been hosted by Audiophile for many years now. And it always is a thrill to know that we can help kids enjoy audiobooks all summer long. So we're a little bit over. Again, thanks for sticking with us. Tell us what you're excited about at #PRHMorningBuzz. Liz, fantastic. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Maureen,
you.
thanks for putting the hat on. And thanks to all of you. And be sure to sign up for our next buzz. It's coming at you fast, August 4th. The summer's going by. So
oh my God.
Share those summer reads with us. And thanks again for watching.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.